to Murder and Everything Else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. Joy and I are two very old friends who love to talk about murder and everything else. So, Joy, you, I'm sure, have heard, as the rest of the world has heard, that Gene Hackman and his wife were found dead in their home, and they had three dogs, and one was dead as well, and the other two were alive running around. The one that was dead was in a crate. I mean, it's a true mystery. So it's going to
Wow.
probably take a while to sort that out and figure out what happened.
Do you think that the dog that was in the crate died because it didn't get food and water in the crate?
Who knows? I don't know what the details are. That's what I would think. I think
the dogs that were running around, had they been eating like the people?
no. Well, no. According to the last thing I heard, it may have been weeks that their bodies were there. So, or a couple of weeks or whatever. But I guess dogs can live, it's just like us, right? As long as you have water. So they were roaming free. But that's what I think about the dog that was in the crate. I heard, see, right now when all this information is coming out, it's like, this is all alleged, you know what I mean? Because they don't have anything concrete out there.
Yeah.
But I heard the two that were running around were German Shepherds. The other one was a different breed, and it was a puppy. So you know how you training your puppy, you don't want it to be messing on so maybe that's why the puppy was in the crate. And my guess is that Gene Hackman and his wife died, who knows in what order. Because freaky things happen, right? Could be a freak accident, who knows? And I would think that the puppy couldn't get to any food or water, which is really sad. But and it's sad that the humans died too. But I love dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not a laughing matter. It's just that it's such a weird mystery. I mean, I hope they figure out exactly what happened.
I will also say, as the owner of a German Shepherd, they like to eat poop. So maybe that's how they stayed alive.
Could be. Who knows?
I know that sounds really gross, but for all of our listeners out there who are dog lovers and dog owners, I know you're not that grossed out. I just know it.
My dog Jet used to love eating his poop.
Right?
Yep.
It's so funny how the things that we put up with from our furry friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And by furry friends, I'm also referring to the condition of my legs at the end of spring. Well, I just have to say this, Cheryl. I know that we have talked in the past about this not becoming a political podcast, or platform. I know also that we have, but we do share things like cultural things, and we talk about things that are in the news. And I will say that I was really sad to see that when this new administration came into power in January, what the president did was he fired or resigned the Kennedy Center people and put himself as the Kennedy Center head person. And then he named his acting director of national intelligence as the interim executive director of the center. And he said that they share a vision for, quote, a golden age of American arts and culture, and we will be overseeing the daily operations of the center, unquote. And he named himself the chair of the cultural institution in early February. And I'm really, really disappointed. One, he's got enough on his plate because remember, he's got to solve the Middle East crisis, and he's got to bring down the price of eggs, and he's got to, golf, and he's got to, read bad teleprompter speeches, and he has to spit gleeks out onto his arm when he's giving speeches, and he has to focus on all the xenophobia and misogyny and all that. But on top of it, it bothers me because I used to really enjoy the Kennedy Center programming and also the awards given each year for comedy, for musical abilities and skills to different bands or performers, to actors, to people who were, in the spotlight. And I mean, some of the shows were amazing. And we talked about it earlier when Heart redid that song by Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. I mean, I got goosebumps. I could go back and watch Nancy Wilson belting that
watched,
out.
No, Ann Wilson.
Ann Wilson, Nancy Wilson, Mary Wilson, whatever those Wilson twins' names are.
I
get chills.
That clip has millions and millions of views, and I have to say that I myself have contributed at least 1 million views. I've watched that performance so many times.
When I'm having a rough day, you know what I do? I go and listen to music. And that's one of the things that I go and listen to or watch when I'm having a rough day. People are lifted up by music, Cheryl, and by the arts. Oh, yeah. And I'm bothered by someone whose voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard, naming themselves. It's like it's not like he's a dancer or a performer or a singer or a comedian or an actor. It's like, leave the heavy lifting up to the professionals. And I mean the people who are in the arts. It would be like Beethoven came back to life for one concert and they were having it at Carnegie Hall and they decided to bring Kid Rock in to present him.
Right. I mean, I did not know this. So you are enlightening me because I didn't know this happened.
Yeah, so I feel like we're actually ushering in a golden age of diarrhea, right?
Right? Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway. Wow.
Well, rolling off of that and into updates, I have a lot of updates, Elena. And so I'm going to have to go at a fast pace, okay? Because I sucked up half of my update and shout out time with my soapbox.
The time is ticking. Time is ticking.
Cheryl, go. This is very exciting. Very exciting. But my youngest daughter has committed to playing NCAA Division II volleyball for Barton College. So we are super excited for her. Congratulations to my Minnie McKeon. Also, another quick update. The family I nanny for had their third baby. We are up to our eyeballs in baby smells and baby diapers and baby bottles. And you know how much I love a baby. And then
congratulations.
I know,
all
isn't
around.
That exciting?
Yes.
I came home yesterday with baby spit up all over my arm. I smelled like sour milk.
Yum.
Anyway, Cheryl, you got any updates?
I do have an update, and this is going to be a few weeks old, but I'm going to say it anyway because whenever I make mistakes, it just eats away at me. So on the OJ, Nicole and Ron episode, I said that Nicole left her prescription glasses at the restaurant, Mezzaluna, and I meant to say Nicole's mother had left her glasses. Okay, so I know all of you who knew the story were going, it wasn't Nicole's glasses, and you would be right. I misspoke. That's it. The end. That's my update. I just had to say it because it bugged me when I heard it. All right. It's more of a correction. We could have a corrections corner, but that would be long.
For all those people out there who don't reach out to us and let us know what they think, let us know if you'd like a corrections corner. All right.
That's what their life is missing right now is a corrections corner.
I personally want to have That's What She Said corner.
You have that in every recording.
Yeah, right. So I could set myself up to say things and then I'll say it myself. So I'll be like, I have something really big to share with you. That's what she said. Anyway, rolling on to shout outs. A shout out to the girls in my knitting and crocheting class that I volunteer for on Fridays. And the reason I'm saying the girls is because there's no boys in the class. Anyway, one of them drew me
Got
the
it.
cutest picture, Bruno. They are so fun and interesting. They're full of life. They have their whole lives ahead of them. They're like 12, 13, 14, 15. It's just so fun to listen to them, to observe them. Don't
That's
you
cool.
just don't you just love teenagers, Cheryl?
Yeah, when I used to teach dance, I used to teach young kids, elementary school, and then all the way through high school, and then adults too. But yeah, their energy is very, very cute, very
I
sweet.
wish that you could have taught me dance because I would not have learned any dancing, but I would have made you laugh. You would have
Yes,
been in the corner, crouched down, peeing your pants every class
yeah.
because I can guarantee you that I would never have learned anything, but it would have been totally worth a laugh.
And it sounds like, and neither would any of the other students because I would have been spending my
That's
time
right.
laughing and not teaching.
All right. And my final shout out today is to springtime. It's right around the corner. I am sick and tired of being cold. Sick and tired. How about you, Cheryl?
I'm not sick and tired of the cold. It's raining today and it's really nice.
What?
My shout, yeah, it's raining.
It rains
In
in
the
Arizona?
valley of Arizona. It
What the
does. And I
hell?
love it when I love the monsoons when there's thunder and lightning and it feels like the world is going to end. Um,
I
but
can't
that
believe
hasn't
it
happened a
rains
lot.
there.
I know, right? I could take a picture as proof. My shout out is to this YouTuber that I came across when doing research for today's episode, and her name is Fumi Desalu Vold. Wow, what an
Whoa.
exotic name. Anyway, I just want to give her a shout out. I just love her vibe and the way she speaks. And so after doing the research for this episode, I just started listening to her other episodes because while this subject is dark, she does a lot of lighthearted subjects. She used to be a model back in the day, so she does a lot of fashion. She does a lot of fashion reviews, which I really
Mm.
enjoy. And she just has a demeanor that lifts my spirits. So lately I've just been playing her as I'm doing stuff around the place just to keep my spirits up. So anyway, yeah, I want to give her a shout out. You guys can check her YouTube out. Again, her name is Fumi Desalu Vold.
Wow.
Say that 10 times fast.
Fumi desalubol. Fumi desalubol. Fumi desalubol. Now it's gonna be a
Oh, goodness.
Well, we are back this week with your favorite murder specialist. Her name is Cheryl. And what do you have for us this week, Cheryl?
Oh, gosh. Joy, the saying, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Well, it couldn't
Mhm.
apply more than in this situation. Today, we're going to talk about the killing of Shanquella Robinson. This is just an incredibly tragic story. Um, and this only happened a couple of years ago. So let's get into it. My sources are Wikipedia, CNN, ABC News, Baller Alert, Atlanta Black Star, WCNC, ABC News, and YouTubers Kendall Ray, and as I mentioned, Fumi Desalu Bold. So Shanquella Shanquella Brenada Robinson was born on January 9, 1997, to Bernard and Salamandra Robinson. She had a half sister, Tequila Quilla Long, and so they had the same mother, different fathers. So Shanquella was Bernard's only child. Shanquella was an American businesswoman, founder of a women's fashion clothing line, hairstylist, and social media personality. She was from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey,
Shanquella was,
she was a local girl.
yeah. She was a graduate of Winston-Salem State University. She ran a hair braiding business called Exquisite Kids for children's ages 1 through 12, for children ages 1 through 12. And she had an online clothing store called Exquisite Boutique. So she, at 25, was like rocking and rolling. I mean, she had her a full life and a full life ahead of her. But on October 28th, 2022, Shanquella traveled to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico for a short vacation with 6 other people, 3 men and 3 women who would be nicknamed in the media later as the Cabo Six. And those 6 people are Khalil Cook, who was a friend of hers for a little over 5 years, and the family knew him well. There's
Wow.
Dejanay Jackson, who she went to college with, and the 4 other friends were friends of Dejanay. The 4 other friends are Malik Dyer, Winter Donovan, Elise Hyatt, and Nazir Wiggins. Now, the exact relationship between each of them is unclear, but that's what I know, is that Khalil was supposed to be like a good friend, and Dejanay she knew from college, and the other 4 were Dejanay's friends. So, I mean, knowing what we know now, calling them friends is a stretch. And like I said, I can only confirm that Khalil was supposed to be a trusted friend, even a best friend, and that Shanquella had gone to college with Dejanay. So Shanquella's mother said she was not familiar with the people in this group, with the exception of Khalil, who was not only Shanquella's friend, but like I said, was close to her family. I mean, he took like trips with them. He knew the family well. So just, I mean, keep that in mind as you hear this story, because it just makes it so unbelievable. So this group went to celebrate the birthdays of Dejanay Jackson and Nazir Wiggins. Everyone except Nazir arrived at the villa in Mexico on Friday, October 28, 2022, and Nazir arrived the next day. So they went to this luxury resort in Cabo called the Cabo Villas, and the villa was gorgeous. Wide open living space, private pool and hot tub. It was a 5-bedroom, 5.5-bathroom villa, and they hired a private chef. So the villa cost approximately $1,500 a night. And there are unconfirmed rumors that Shanquella paid for the whole entire villa because she
Wow.
was making good money. Yeah. And I've heard
Have you ever been to Cabo?
Remember I told you I went to Mexico, but I don't remember where I went.
Girl, you got to start remembering stuff.
I went once and I don't know where we went. Isn't that amazing? I don't know where we went. But so in researching this, I've heard different prices. I've heard all the way up to $2,500 a night. But so I apologize that I could not confirm that definitively, but it's split amongst 5 people. That shouldn't be too bad. But I did hear on certain channels and reading that she might have paid for the whole thing, but that is alleged. So they arrived on October 28th, and they were supposed to stay over the weekend. So 28th is a Friday, and they were supposed to check out on October 31st, which is a Monday. So, and Shanquella was very close to her mom, Salamandra, and when they arrived at the villa, she
love
called
that
her
name,
mom.
by the way.
Which one, Shanquella or Salamandra?
Salamandra. It's so pretty.
Yeah. She called her mom when they arrived at the villa, and she told her mom she was getting ready for dinner. They were having this private chef come over and make tacos. I mean, it sounds like my dream. But
Girl,
unfortunately,
I'll make you tacos, and I'm not a private chef.
Well, you are. Can you be my private chef, please?
Sure.
Will you work for free?
Yes.
Will you work? Will you work for?
Kidding? I do.
Will you work for compliments? I'll give you compliments till the
He
cows
works
come home.
hard for the money.
All right, bringing back down to a somber note, that this would be the last time her mother would ever speak to Shanquella, because within 24 hours, Shanquella would be dead. So the group spends the day swimming, playing games, eating and drinking as one does when you're on vacation. They were posting on Shanquella's Instagram story, showing lighthearted posts of them having fun on this vacation. However, at 8:45 p.m. that night, there is an Instagram story posted showing Shanquella completely passed out in a hammock. It was taken on her phone, but was recorded and uploaded by her good friend, Khalil. What makes the post disturbing is his commentary. He says, "We got our first dead body," as he zooms in on her face. Now, I know when you're joking around and you're drunk and passed out, that might be something you say, right? Got our first dead
Right?
body. But it is haunting considering what happens to her later. So the following day, October 29, Shanquella records video on her phone, and all of this is available online if you want to look at it yourself. So she's holding her phone and she's walking around the villa recording, and she's looking for everybody else. And she's saying, like, hey, doesn't take that long to get naked. So, you can only assume that they were all going to get naked and go into, skinny dipping in the pool or the hot tub or whatever. But she's going around the villa, and all the rooms are empty, but then she comes onto this one room, and she finds everybody in there, everybody but her. Okay.
Huh.
So, I mean, in hindsight, this is very weird because you feel like she is being left out of something, right? And that's not even just conjecture, because they were all in there, and then considering what happens after that. And remember, she's probably naked at this point, because they were all supposed to get naked, but they're all in there clothed and just standing around, and the vibe is very weird, and especially
Hmm.
in contrast to her voice. She's like, hey, she calls them hoes because those are her friends. Hey, hoes, doesn't take that long to get naked. Where are you all at? And then she walks into this room. They're all clothed and just standing around. So shortly after 2 p.m., Khalil called Shanquella's mom to let her know that Shanquella wasn't feeling well. And he tells Shanquella's mom that Shanquella has alcohol poisoning. He also told Salamandra that the doctor was on their way to the villa. And after that, Khalil would call Salamandra a few more times, once to let her know that an ambulance arrived, and then a final call to Salamandra to let her know that Shanquella had died. I mean, imagine if
Whoa.
that's you receiving the information about your child. Not even 24 hours after she arrives and says, the private chef is coming over to make tacos. And then her friend calls and says she's dead from alcohol
Right.
poisoning.
So I have a question because there were 5 other people at this,
Six.
6 other
Mm-hmm.
people, sorry, at this house.
Mm-hmm.
And like nowadays, you go anywhere and there's video, there's photographs. Wasn't Did they look at everyone else's phones? I mean, didn't anyone else take video? Shanquella can't be the only person who is recording video at this time.
Right. Well, I don't think they will, considering what happens later or what doesn't happen, I don't think they could get their phones. And when I get to that part, when I keep listening and you'll understand why. Okay.
Okay.
So Salamandra says that when Khalil, Shanquella's best friend, calls to tell her that Shanquella has died, she says he was emotionless while relaying this information to her. She said he didn't seem really upset about it. But again, like, how do you know how people are going to react? When someone died, I don't know.
Right. And
Seems really,
also, like, I mean, sometimes when there's a lot happening, you don't really know. Sometimes also, like, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I
right. I
could
mean,
tell
it's hard
you,
to,
I can tell
but
you that even when people call you and they're crying and acting crazy on the phone,
mhm,
they could be just pretending or acting.
that too.
And
Yeah.
you can take my word for that.
Oh, okay. We need to read between the lines on that one. Okay.
That's right.
So get this, the friends pack up and come back to the US the next day, leaving Shanquella's body in Mexico. Who does that? Who does that? Your friend is that? That's why all of this is sus as F, right? So they come back, they leave her body in Mexico. And I looked up, like, why were they able to leave? Well, they left so quickly that the authorities were still trying to gather people's names and stuff like that, and they were gone. So all they
Whoa.
brought back to the US, yeah, all they brought back to the US were Shanquella's bags. And Khalil took them to Shanquella's parents' house and stuck to the group's story of alcohol poisoning. Okay, keep all of this in mind because it gets very confusing and very sus later. Okay, So a few days later,
Already sus.
I
So
know, right?
here's my question. There has to be a chain of events that happened, right?
Hmm.
And my
Well, yeah,
guess would be that the Mexican authorities, once they got a body of a foreigner, that they would also have to contact the family, et cetera, et cetera. So I find it interesting that Khalil's the only person calling out of
communicate.
these six people.
Well, because this is in the very early stages, right? So he's letting the mom know, and also he wants to put out his narrative right from the get-go. That's how I feel. But listen on, okay? So a few days later, Salamandra receives an anonymous phone call telling her that there was a fight in Mexico between the friends and Shanquella and that she did not die from alcohol poisoning. And then they hang up.
Was
So
it the
after
chef?
um who called anonymously? No, that's what anonymous means. I don't know who it was. But after,
Interesting.
so a few of the friends, quote unquote, they visit Salamandra after they're back in the US, and she questions them about hearing that there was a fight and that it was not alcohol poisoning that killed Shanquella, but they denied it. And each of them tells a different story. Some said Shanquella was found in the bathroom by a maid, and that's when they found out she had alcohol poisoning. Others said she was found in bed. Everything is very confusing and suspicious. But get this, this was so sad. So Shanquella's father, Bernard, spent days trying to coordinate the return of his daughter's body back to the US because he had trouble getting in touch with anyone that spoke English. Now, at a resort
No, you said
where
it
you're
was
gonna,
at a house, a villa.
right, at a resort or villa, the people that manage it are going to speak English. How are you going to communicate with tourists? I mean, like, it seems very,
Yeah, but
it
I will say,
seems,
Cheryl, in this day and age of AI and Google Translate and all that, remember a lot of people, oh, that's so interesting you say this. So I just have to take a little like segue right here and
okay,
say
yeah, segue
that
away.
I've talked about it before, but I have a Get Ready with Me channel on TikTok. And I told my friend Marie about it, and she told her family about it. Her family that lives in another country. And
Mhm.
one of her sisters reached out and started messaging me and saying how much they liked my channel. And it was all
Oh,
in English. And so I asked her, "Oh, your sister speaks fluent English." And she goes, "No, she doesn't. Remember, there is so much comprehensive like AI out there for translation, for all this other stuff that I was literally fooled into thinking that
oh,
because
interesting.
the AI, the translation AI, Cheryl, it even translated colloquialisms and
Oh my
regional
God.
responses that made me feel like this person.
It was a real person. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
so believe me when I say that it's not that odd to run into people who don't speak English in another country, that English is not their number one language. And number two, if they're using the internet to book people, then why would they ever need to actually have a phone conversation? There's an entire generation of people, and we've talked about this, that don't even make phone calls. They
Right.
don't even know
Well,
how to.
this is so fascinating. Okay, you guys, for all you OGs, you've probably heard me say this before, but any of you newbies, I just want you to know that when Joy and I talked about doing a podcast, from my end, one of the reasons I wanted to do one is because I wanted to talk to her. She doesn't follow true crime like I do. She's not a
At all.
deranged person like I am. So I wanted to discuss this with her and get her feedback on things. And I will tell you, you're the only person, because everything I've read, everyone, including me, sees this as suspicious. In other words, like the father couldn't reach anyone that spoke English, but in reality, it was because he was getting the runaround because things were suspicious and they were trying to cover up something. That's what it feels like to me. But you're making a very good point that it could just
Yeah.
be as innocent as that he could not speak with someone, he couldn't reach someone that spoke English, and probably, and enough to coordinate the return of Shanquella's body. That's pretty
Yeah,
heavy stuff. You're right. You see, this is why we have this podcast.
that's
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Yin and
So,
yang.
all right, get out your notebooks and your pens, because this is where everything gets even crazier. So the Mexican police report is released. All right. The police report and the report says at 2:13 p.m., one of the Cabo Six, which they're called, Winter Donovan, called the resort asking for a doctor to be sent to their villa to treat Shanquella for alcohol poisoning. By 3:15 p.m., Dr. Carolina Gutierrez from the American Medical Center arrived at the villa and reported that Shanquella was alive but severely dehydrated and was unable to communicate. After several failed attempts to give her an IV, the doctor informed the friends that Shanquella needed further medical attention and needed to be transported to the hospital, but the friends refused and insisted Shanquella stay at the villa and continue to be treated there. Now, later on, Shanquella's mom would ask Khalil why, first of all, how he knew it was alcohol poisoning, because remember on one of the phone calls he made, he told her that she was feeling sick from alcohol poisoning. Remember that? And
Yep.
so Shanquella's mom, being the sharp woman that she is, she asks him, well, how did you know it was alcohol poisoning if the doctor hadn't even arrived yet? And so, because alcohol poisoning is specific, it's not to say, oh, my friend's like, she drank too much and she's not feeling well. Be very specific. They kept saying alcohol poisoning. She also asked Khalil why they didn't transport Shanquella to the hospital. And he told her they only accepted cash and that it would cost $5,000. So who knows the truth? But the doctor was there for over an hour. This is according to the police report. The doctor was there for over an hour, and eventually Shanquella began having seizures. Emergency services were supposedly called around 4:20 p.m., and then Winter and the doctor began performing CPR. Mexican authorities were reported to have arrived more than an hour after emergency services were called. The report states Shanquella was given 14 rounds of CPR, 5 doses of adrenaline, and 6 discharges from a defibrillator with no success. Shanquella was officially declared dead at 5:57 p.m., with the cause of death being cardiac arrest. Now hold on to your butts. As Shanquella's family was making funeral arrangements, they received bombshell news that would contradict everything they were told by the so-called friends and the Mexican police report, because a police report is information that they gather from witnesses, okay?
Right.
But a death certificate is scientifically based and it's from the medical examiner.
Right.
So the death certificate from Mexico stated Shanquella had a broken neck. And some of the reports I listened to and read stated that her head was basically like decapitated inside her body. You know what I mean? Like the skull, the neck was like detached from her spine. She also had a severe spinal cord injury. There was no mention of alcohol or cardiac arrest on this death certificate. And on the death certificate, the approximate time of death was 3 p.m., just 15 minutes after the injuries were sustained. This completely contradicts the police report that stated she died at 5:57 p.m. from cardiac arrest. I mean, you're getting the Mexican police report and the Mexican death certificate completely contradicting, not even a little bit off with the time, hours off. And the cause of death, cardiac arrest and a broken neck and spine. I mean, crazy. So after the death certificate comes out, Shanquella's so-called friends go silent. They stop talking to the family, and Salamandra confronts one of the friends, who I am going to assume allegedly was Khalil. And she says he got nervous and sweaty. So on November 16, 2022, the day after laying Shanquella to rest, a cell phone video surfaced confirming what the death certificate stated. Okay, Now, this is also on the internet. It's very graphic. So just be forewarned if you're going to look for it and watch it. The video shows Shanquella naked. Now imagine being naked. You're extra vulnerable, right? Completely naked. And in this video, she's being viciously beaten by one of her friends, later identified as Dejanay Jackson. And then Winter Donovan grabs Shanquella by the neck and body slams her to the ground. This is being
Whoa.
videoed. Okay. And it's purported that this is what killed Shanquella, the body slam. The others watched and encouraged the beating, with two people videoing the attack. And Khalil was one of the people videoing, Joy.
Her bestie.
Videoing. Yeah. He can be heard saying, so he's holding his phone, filming her, videoing her. And he goes, Quella, can you at least fight back? And Shanquella, in a very meek voice, says no. When you watch this video, she does not strike back. She is outnumbered. And she's naked and vulnerable, and she has no idea what's going on.
Oh, and she also might have been inebriated.
Could be, yeah. And she's not a fighter. Her mother and friends, her sister said that she's not a fighter. So you just hear her say no when he says, "Can you at least fight back?" And then he says, and then Khalil says, "Fight back, something like do something." Like,
so do you think it was like financially motivated, like they were trying to shake her down for money?
Don't know, Joy.
Or maybe she had like messed with somebody's dude or somebody's girl, or maybe there was like old beef. Because like, I mean, this is a total setup. It's 6 people who lured a woman to a resort, and then, you know, they figured nobody else would be there to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decided to off her, and then they were going to stick to the same story.
Yep. I know. We don't know. I mean, that's the sad thing. So, of course, the video goes viral, right? And content creators repost the video. Thousands of people across social media called for justice for Shanquella and are still calling for justice to this day, because October of 2022 was only a little over 2 years ago. So, and I want to bring attention to it too. So people are.
I never even heard of this.
Well, you're welcome very much.
Surprise.
So the social media was instrumental in bringing awareness to this story, because prior to it being out on social media, the coverage was only local. Yeah. So prosecutors in Mexico would file charges for femicide, a form of gender-based violence. And in the US, this is equivalent to a homicide. Listen to this. So Mexican prosecutors issued an arrest warrant for, they said unnamed person, but we all know it was Dejanay Jackson. They issued an arrest warrant for her, and they state it wasn't a fight, but an attack. And they're right. The video clearly shows she does not even strike back. It's so freaking sad. So then they sought to extradite her to face charges in Mexico. However, a Mexican warrant is worthless here in the US. No sworn officer or agent has the authority to arrest anyone on a warrant from another country. It has to be vetted through probable cause laws and information that the Mexican authorities provide to convert it to a US warrant. In other words, there's a lot of red tape, and when there's 2 countries involved, it is just a hot mess, okay? Mm-hmm. So on November 17, 2022, the FBI Charlotte, North Carolina field office opened an investigation into Shanquella's death. Okay. And in December of that year, false reports started circulating that Dejanay Jackson, the woman who was allegedly shown in the viral video assaulting Shanquella, was arrested by Interpol agents on November 28 at a relative's home. The article reproduced by some U.S. publications and cited by YouTube vloggers also said that Desjardins was in a federal custody awaiting extradition to Mexico. However, Shanquella's father also told WCNC that he was unaware of any arrests in the case, and Atlanta Black Star also independently verified the claims with the FBI's Charlotte field office and the U.S. Department of Justice that the reports were false. So this is really scary that you can just put this information out there and it starts circulating.
Oh,
So
sure.
she had not been arrested. So I want to go to a little bit about Nazir Wiggins, because people are talking about all of them should be held accountable, right? And Nazir Wiggins had put out a Facebook Live at some point explaining his side of the events, but some YouTubers had done a deep dive into him. And he said he arrived at the villa the day Shanquella died, and that he arrived at 3:30 p.m. and that she was still alive. This contradicts the death certificate that states she died at 3 p.m. He says that when he arrived, it was clear that Shanquella had drank too much, drinking. He was by her side. He says he moved her to a quieter area where he rubbed her head and played music for her and gave her words of encouragement. The comment about rubbing her head raised eyebrows because it had also been reported that Shanquella had knots on her head, a busted lip, and bloodshot eyes. And so wouldn't he have noticed that she had been beaten? So this makes his story questionable about the time he actually arrived and the details of his story.
Right.
So many people believe that he should also be held accountable for her death, as there's no way he didn't know what was going on when he got there. So to make matters more confusing, okay, the FBI listen to this, the FBI conducted a detailed and thorough investigation of the evidence and worked with the Robinson family to conduct an autopsy in the US, okay, in the United States by the Medical Examiner's Office in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. The US officials told the family that the autopsy done here in the US, it was completed after Shanquella's body was embalmed and transported back to the US, revealed no spinal cord injury, but did show swelling on her brain. But the cause of death is still said to be undetermined. So now you've got you've got the Mexican police report, the Mexican death certificate, and then the US autopsy, all different. So sadly, on April 12th, 2023, federal prosecutors told the family of Shanquella Robinson that the evidence they have isn't enough for prosecution in her death. So Ben Crump, a well-known civil rights attorney, joined Robinson's family in writing a letter to President Joe Biden at that time, calling for the extradition of Robinson's killer to Mexico. And if unable to do so, the family requested that the U.S. Justice Department assume the case. But like I said, the U.S. is not likely to bring any charges, and whether anyone will be extradited to Mexico seems unlikely at this point. So Shanquella's parents have fought tirelessly to bring awareness to their daughter's case. They, along with many of the public, believe Shanquella was set up by the group, just like you said. They never intended to celebrate any birthdays, but instead to viciously attack and kill her. And it appears their plan worked. Between Mexico and the US, it seems like red tape and not enough concrete evidence. So no one's going to be held responsible for her death. I mean, it seems like after this story, if you go to another country, it seems like you can get away with murder.
Well, they did get away with murder.
Yeah, they've gotten.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy too, because there's so many I mean, did they not have any cameras at these villas?
Well, no, I'm sure they did, but it sounds like the US has closed their investigation of it, and without the Mexican police, I'm going to assume, this is my assumption and this is all alleged, I'm going to assume they have information from whatever cameras, whatever. I'm sure they have evidence, or else they wouldn't have served a warrant to extradite her to Mexico, right? They wouldn't have done that without some kind of evidence, right?
Yeah.
Ask this person, this United States citizen, to come back to Mexico. Um, but the US, like I said, you have to go through this process of, vetting the warrant from Mexico so that US honors it. And US is going, we don't have enough information, or, we're not going to pursue it. So now, so we don't know what the evidence is, but I'm sure Mexico has something, or else they wouldn't have tried to extradite her for nothing, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
Cheryl, I'm sure that you probably know this, but in the United States of America, Black American women are murdered 6 times more often than white women. 6 times.
well,
That's so crazy. And the other thing is, there's a lot of Black women are going, like, they're being murdered, but then there's no follow up. So,
or missing.
why? Yeah, or they're missing, or they're sex
Hmm.
trafficked, and so the issue is, um, so there was a study done by Columbia University, and they looked for 2 decades, so for 20 years, women aged 25 to 44, because those are the ages of which women are most likely to be murdered.
Right.
And it's Native American, Alaskan Native, and Black women, women of color, that are
Hmm.
being murdered. And it's like, and there's no follow up, and they're closing cases. And just because the color of your skin doesn't mean that your family doesn't want to know what happened to you.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you don't deserve the same
Yeah, the same due
attention.
process that a white woman gets. And
Exactly.
it's so alarming.
Yeah,
It
and
is
it's
so, and it's interesting because, like, I think about, like, things like the Black Lives Matter movement. I know we said this is not political, but I will say, because a lot of people would turn around and say all lives matter. And that's fine. You know what? You want that little soundbite to go out there. Yeah, of course, all lives matter. That's not what Black Lives Matter means. It's just, the fact of the matter is, I mean, Black Lives Matter was addressing police brutality. So I think about, this knee jerk reaction that people have to sayings like Black Lives Matter and things like that. It's like, imagine, just by virtue of the color of your skin, there being more priority on justice being served for a
Mhm,
horrific crime like this. It makes me so sad. Look at Breonna Taylor. I mean,
mhm.
there's so that, like I said, 6 times more likely. That, to me, and then the lack of follow up or unanswered
Or
questions, or
media attention.
cases, yeah, no media attention, or cases being closed. I'm sorry. So that's 6 times as many more families that don't have
Don't get
answers.
answers. Yeah, and remember I gave a shout out to Gabby Petito's father because when she was missing, she got a lot of media attention, and
Yep.
people who represented women of color that were killed or had gone missing kind of came out and said, "This is great. We're not disparaging that Gabby gets media attention. We just are concerned and would like to be the voice for the people of color that are not getting media attention." And I heard that Gabby Petito's father, at first, he was offended by that, and then he did some research, and he discovered what you're saying about women of color, being 6 times more likely to be killed or going
Yeah.
missing, and how they don't get the immediate attention. And he turned it around and is doing something good now with it, and he is working to change that and
Yeah.
have more attention brought on women of color. So
Good.
and we're doing our little part to keep her story alive, because I feel like this is such an injustice. The people that were involved. There's that video out there, and this we can't get to the bottom of this and have people held responsible. It seems just incredible
Hmm.
in 2025 that something like this is going to go unsolved.
Hmm.
It's unacceptable.
It is.
Um, and then just a little detail that in October of 2024, so just the end of last year, Deja Day Jackson, the woman who appeared in the video attacking Shanquella, filed a petition to legally change her name. I mean, it's understandable, right? So she requested the alias Imani Green. And while the legal paperwork doesn't provide insight into her motives, the timing has raised question among Shanquella's supporters, many of whom see the name change as an attempt to distance herself from the controversy surrounding Shanquella's death, of course, right?
Of course.
So also in October of last year, October 29, 2024, the Robinson family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Shanquella's travel companions, who are referred to in the suit as the Cabo Six, alleging battery, negligence, conspiracy, and emotional distress. And that is the last piece of information I have. So I don't know where they're going to get with that, but I hope that this family gets justice. I hope they do. It's not like you don't know who's involved. You know what I mean? Like, there's a
Right.
video out of it. It's just incredible. So, one of the
Really.
things I want to ask you is, do you think, and this is all alleged, don't anybody come for us. Do you think the doctor in Mexico and the police could have been paid off? Because their police report is completely different from the medical examiner's death certificate.
Well, I don't know the answer to that because I don't know that specific doctor, but I will say this. I do have a little bit, and your mind is going to be blown because
Uh
I do have a little bit of experience with this. And
oh.
so I'm just going to throw this out
Throw it
there.
out there. Throw it out there. Throw
Yeah,
it out there.
you can do with it as you like. But
All
one
right.
summer, I've talked about it briefly, but I was an exchange student. And one summer, the school where I had spent 2+ years learning Spanish reached out to me and asked me if I would come over and be the chaperone and translator for a group of high school students that came over for a summer program and take them on this trip around Spain. We would go to like Sevilla and we would go to like, the Alhambra and all these famous things, like down to uh, Morocco, and just like go around and really immerse ourselves in Spanish culture and, food and all those things. And there was a girl who came on this trip. I'll never forget this. She was a teenager. She was sick a lot. So the first like 6 weeks of the program, they would go through instructional, like classroom learning. And then the last 2 weeks of the summer program, we go on this big trip. And all the kids really, really did sign up for this for the trip. And
Mhm.
I had just finished uh, my college, the time in college that I spent. And um and so I was maybe 23, and these kids were anywhere from 15 to 18, 17, maybe, something like that.
Okay.
They were mostly freshmen, sophomores, and juniors because seniors are already making plans for college, so they wouldn't really come on this trip. This girl was maybe 15 or 16. She was sick a lot, and we had a doctor come out to see her several times, sick to the point where she couldn't get out of bed. And
Mm.
finally, the second or third time the doctor came out, I now remember this is a religious school, and I asked the girl before the doctor came, because the doctor speaks Spanish and I speak both Spanish and English, and I'm translating. The girl
Okay.
doesn't speak any Spanish because she hasn't gone to any of the classes because she's been sick the whole time she's been there.
Oh
And
gosh.
I went in the room and I sat down on by the side of her bed, and I just asked her, "Is there a chance that you could be pregnant?"
Mm.
And her eyes got really big and
Ooh.
she said, "I don't know what you're talking about." But
Oh
her
God.
reaction was very suspect. And then the
Said it all.
doctor said to me after, because I was in the room to translate, but also it was a male doctor, she was a female student. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Listen, I'm not going to write this down on any paper. I understand this is a religious school. I understand that, her parents paid a lot of money for her to come on this summer exchange program, but he said to me, he goes, she's pregnant.
Oh,
And he goes, so you can do what you like with that. He said, but what she's experiencing right now is the nausea that you would experience with morning sickness.
oh my
And
gosh.
Cheryl, I have to say that I understood the doctor's position because obviously it would be scandalous for the school. It would be
Mm-hmm.
scandalous for the family. It would be scandalous for the teachers and the organization and the church.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
she was only there for 8 short weeks, and she would have gone home before she even started to show. And the school doesn't want to deal with that. And the church
Right.
doesn't want to deal with that. So what do? They toss it back to the parents. Let the parents deal with that. Well, believe
Mm.
me, I know she came on that trip knowing full well that she was pregnant.
Right, right. Oh God.
But she
Wow.
figured she'd be away from her parents for 8 to 10 weeks, and she would figure out what she was going to do in those 8 to 10 weeks.
Buying herself
So
time.
I am not surprised that the doctor in Mexico, now again, remember, this happened in like 1992, for example, this story. And the story that you told happened in 2022, 2023. So do I think that there are other things like more obligation on behalf of a doctor or whatever? Yeah. But do I also understand that the doctor probably was like, listen, this is bad juju. I don't want to get involved. Yeah. Do they have different rules in that country as far as like standard medical practices they do here? Yeah. The doctors in this country are literally a lot of times hands are tied by insurance companies and prior authorizations and pre existing conditions, et
Conditions.
cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, et
Oh
cetera.
my God.
So
Wow.
I don't
Yeah.
think for a second that that doctor did anything outside of what they were just being asked to do, which is show up and help somebody. And when they pushed back and said no, you've got wealthy Americans who are probably throwing a lot of money around to have a doctor come. He doesn't know her health history. He doesn't know what she's done. He doesn't know if they're drinking or doing drugs. Because remember, a lot of Americans or other people go on holiday and they behave very badly. This is not the first doctor who
Oh
probably walked
yeah.
in and was like, okay, this is a hot mess.
Right, right,
So he
right.
probably is like, let me just treat the symptoms, give some ibuprofen, whatever, recommend they go to a doctor or clinic or a hospital and then clear out of here and just take my fee.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
know?
It was a she, by the way. We can't be
Right.
sexist. It was a female doctor. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I feel like she had visible injuries, she
Mhm.
had bruising and this and that. And it was just
But
hard for
who
me to
knows?
believe.
Maybe Deshaun Jackson and Khalil and all these other people had a fistful of cash. Who
Oh
knows?
yeah, yeah.
And
That's what I'm
maybe they
saying.
handed it to her and said, listen, I know for a fact
It was
that,
alcohol poisoning.
yeah, I know for a fact that you can give people money and have them change things and do things in this country. So why wouldn't it hold true
Why
that you
not?
can do it in other countries?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I had a doctor say to my face, I'm not going to put down that she's pregnant on any paperwork because I don't want, I'm not going to do that. So he said that to my face. So if a doctor will say that to your face and then not put it down so as not to upset the parents and the school and the church, I mean, come on. There was no school and
It's
church
not a stretch.
and teachers involved in this story.
Right, right, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Isn't that
it's
crazy?
just so sad. I just hope for her family and her true friends that she gets justice and they get justice because this is just an awful, awful story. It's just awful. You send your daughter, your loved one, they go off on this vacation. And remember, I've mentioned this before. I mean, it's terrible to die before your time anywhere, but on vacation, it's like it just seems like, you know what I mean? It seems like it should
Yeah,
not happen. It shouldn't be possible that you go to enjoy something and then you end up dying or being killed by your
exactly. And
so-called.
most people would much rather die at home, you know, with the auto asphyxiation situation.
God, you're just terrible. No, but it's true. You feel like I
Yeah,
feel
you're
like
you're there to soak up the sun
yeah,
and
like you
to
have
have
you
some
have
cocktails, or as I like to call them, cockies, and put on some cute heels. I've already planned what I'm wearing. Don't let this stop you from going to Cabo. Let me just say that. I've been to Cabo. It's absolutely gorgeous.
and
Let
I
me
could
tell
have been there too, but I don't
Yeah,
remember.
she could have been there, but she doesn't remember. You know why you don't remember, Cheryl? I really,
What?
really, truly believe this because you have so many past lives and so many amazing things in your past lives that this life is hard to remember. I remember
Oh,
reading that somewhere. Just like when you have deja vu, you know what's happening? You're remembering things that you
a
did
past
in your
life.
past lives.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Guys,
Very interesting.
in a past life, when I was podcasting right around this time, I got really, really hungry because my stomach just started growling. And then I got a crazy deja vu. Anyway, if you don't
Oh
go to
God.
Cabo on vacation, it's a real crime because Cabo is absolutely gorgeous. Don't let this stand in your way.
Mm.
But you know what else is a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
That is a crime. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day. All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch managed by Cheryl Yamaguchi. Podcast editing, advertising, and social media managed by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezic. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible.com, Amazon Music, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok, or you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.